So, so why are we here? The reason why we are here basically is because we, as HR practitioners and line managers, want to build or refresh our knowledge on the importance of monitoring the performance of people in our team. And also because we want to know how to give feedback that inspires performance. At the end of the day, what we're expecting or hopeful about is that when this program ends, everybody here will be able to raise the performance levels of people in their team through the skilled implementation of performance monitoring and feedback techniques. So that's why we're here. In terms of content, we'll just run through the 6 items we have. We'll talk about the business climate because after all, we're all working within a context. We're working within the context of Nigeria, our organizations. So let's understand that a bit. Then we'll talk more about understanding performance management. We will talk about performance monitoring and the performance feedback. Then we look at the benefits of giving and the costs of not giving feedback. And then we should conclude. Okay? So let's start. Now, what keeps this man awake at night? He's a Nigerian. He lives in Nigeria, he works in Nigeria. The business climate that we all live and work in. As we all know, right now, we're living in interesting times. The last statistics from about inflation, I think, was 24%. So there's rising inflation in our economy and diminishing purchasing power. Are we all experiencing that? There's naira depreciation and rising cost of borrowing. There's insecurity and infrastructural inefficiency. And again, there's policy instability. Today, Forex, tomorrow, strike, day after, what next? In short, we are living in a VUCA business environment. V, volatile, U, uncertain, C, complex, and A, ambiguous. Now, despite this, despite the uncertainty, despite the complexity, the volatility, etc., businesses still need to, one, grow their revenue because we are still give the shareholders their dividend. They gave us money for business, we need to give them returns. And so these pressures has driven businesses to constantly recreate and renovate the underlying business model. Post-COVID, a lot of businesses have now gone digital and a lot of businesses done in the digital space. So as businesses reinvent themselves, as they compete, and as skills become more and more specialized and scarce, the competition for talent also increases. And one of the most critical capabilities sought after is the ability to lead and maximize the performance of people in your teams through the use of effective performance management techniques. So that's like the business case for why we are here. And so let's look at how performance management works. Briefly, what is it all about? And I'll not bore you with definitions here. I'll just say in summary that performance management is a process. And that process is one that assesses and ensures that people in your team, that employees, number one, are aware of the level of performance expected of them in their role. What does that mean? It means they have goals and they are clear on what those goals are. They also have seen the picture of success. They know what they need to do to achieve success in their role, and the measures of success are clear to them. So they know what they need to do to be successful in their role. It also is a process that also ensures that employees are able to carry out their roles at the level expected of them. So they have the right skills, they have the right experience, they have the right attitude, skill sets, and work tools. So in summary, we can say performance management ensures that employees are clear on their goals, they know what to do, and they're well equipped to carry it out very well. So what are the components? From what I've said earlier on, you can see that one of the components is actually clarity of goals, so goal setting. Another component is performance monitoring. Then we have performance evaluation, we have learning and development, and we have rewards and recognition. These are the performance management components. But the ones we are focusing on in this session today are the performance monitoring aspects and the performance evaluation aspects. Any questions so far? I hope you're hearing me well.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, based on that, we've now seen what the components are. Let's talk about performance monitoring. And I'd like to ask us in the chat room, when is performance monitoring required? When do you believe performance monitoring is required?
Okay, please let's drop our opinion in the chat box.
Yes, please. Great to see your chat. When do you think performance monitoring is required? Sammy HR says, from the day of onboarding a new hire. Grace says, after goals have been established. Okay, thank you. Lami Kora says, when the employees are performing below standard. Thank you, keep it coming. Adebanke says, when, okay, I think she means in the beginning, when the JD is shared. Catherine says, as soon as the goal is communicated. Thank you very much. Adebanke says, from the beginning. Now, performance monitoring is actually an ongoing process. So people who say from the beginning, you're quite right. Not only does it start at the beginning, it continues as long as the employee is performing on that job for you. It continues, a continuous process. Adewale Ojo says to be able to evaluate the workflow process of an employee. Yes, and because he's working on a continuous basis, it doesn't just start and stop. You also have to monitor performance on a continuous basis. Thank you very much for all the inputs. So let's just say that performance monitoring is a continuous process that which the line manager has to employ in a bid to ensure that the employee is progressing towards set goals. So this is done through continuous observation of one, the goals and the KPIs. So it's not enough to give him or her the goals. Is he or she performing well towards those goals? Does she know what she's supposed to do? Is she clear? What did I ask her to do? And is she performing those goals? So you're going to be asking yourself, what did I ask her to do? Versus what action has that person taken? Then what progress has that person made thus far? Is this person on track or off track? If the person is on track, fantastic. What has enabled that person to achieve the goal? So what are the strengths that I have seen or that this person is experiencing, and how can this person leverage on those skills, those strengths? Or, you know what, this person is really off track and I can see that there have been some barriers to achievement. Person is not focused, or there's some things that are system related that, you know, need to be eliminated so that those goals can be achieved. So you are going to be observing and asking yourself, what are the strengths? What are the barriers? If there are barriers, how can we close those gaps so that person can achieve their goals? And this employee we are talking about, is this person focused on the business? Is the person focused on helping us achieve our goals? Or this person has a plan B and that's what takes most of his time? You know, so what is the person's level of focus on the job? And what is the behavior of that person? Person used to be collaborative before, you know, a pleasant person to work with, and suddenly the person prefers to work in a silo and hardly speaks to anybody. What's the attitude of this person? So you're observing, you're monitoring these things, and you're asking yourself questions. You also ask yourself, wait a minute, the goals I even asked this person to achieve, are they still relevant given the volatility we've talked about earlier on? You can imagine during the COVID era, I think COVID, everybody went on lockdown in March. Most organizations in January already had their strategy plans. But those plans, I am so sure, were not relevant anymore once COVID struck. So it's actually good to review your goals to find out whether they're still relevant given what is going on in your environment. So you're asking yourself, these goals I've given, are they still relevant? So you're asking yourself questions you've observed, you're wondering, why is this person behaving this way? What's going on? You know? And the only person that knows the answer to what's going on is that individual. So at some point in time, there needs to be a conversation with that person. But once you have gone through the person's performance record in your mind, and you can see that performance is on track, then what you want to do is have a conversation with that person, a performance conversation. And in that conversation, you are talking, it's a two-way process, and you are establishing what has contributed to that person's success. And going forward, how do we continue on this great trajectory? Then you want to identify going forward, what might be a challenge, you've done so well, fantastic, well done, but this next thing you're supposed to do, this person or this thing might be a challenge to you. So how do you overcome it? Let us proactively anticipate and manage it so that it doesn't become a stumbling block in the future. Celebrate progress. Everybody loves to feel appreciated and valued. So when you're having that conversation, if the person merits a celebration, celebrate the person. Good job, well done, a clap on the back, a handshake, and continue to monitor performance and ensure timely feedback. However, if performance is off track, you need to establish the cause of poor performance. What happened here? Is it training? Is it your personality? You're just like that? Is it some personal circumstances? Is it environmental? So you need to establish what happened there. Because any intervention you want to give must address the cause. If the issue is temperamental or personal, and you think the person should go on training, then you're wasting your time and money. Because it's not a training issue. There's no amount of training you can give to solve a personal issue or an environmental issue. So it's important to know the cause so that you can prefer the right intervention. Develop a plan to get back on track. And in some companies, they have what we call the performance development plan or performance improvement plan, whereby they're saying, you know what, performance is not good, it's actually off track, but within 3 months, I need you to get back on track. And these are things you're going to be doing to get back on track. You're going to do A, B, C. So setting clear goals and clear milestones for that person to achieve during that period with your support. And then you'll continue to monitor performance closely this time. So close marking and ensure timely feedback is given to that person. However, if performance still does not improve, then you will have to invoke the consequences of poor performance. And this would ideally be documented in your performance management policy. So if somebody falls off the radar or performance is poor, half year or end of the year, what are the consequences? If it continues, what are the consequences? So your performance management policy should actually state all that. And if it doesn't, it's time to review it. Now, let's go. So any questions so far? Questions, comments?
Yeah, I think questions should be after this session.
Oh, I see. Okay, not a problem. Let's go on then. So let's talk about performance feedback then. What is that all about? Before we answer what that is all about, I want to ask a question. Who benefits most from performance feedback? What do you think? Please type your answer in the chat box. Who benefits from performance feedback? Sammy HR says the process owner. Thank you, Sammy. More comments? Who benefits from performance feedback? Oiloye says subordinate. Amore Tinuade says the employee. Continue. Catherine says both parties, both the employer and the employee. Interesting. Thank you. Lame Conra says the management stroke employee. Florence says both. Interesting. Both parties, all the organization, the employees, HR, fantastic. Somebody says a two-way thing. Kenny says fantastic. Thank you very much for all your contributions. And you're correct. Everybody benefits. It's a win-win. Thank you, Balogo. It's a win-win for both the line manager and the employee. Everybody benefits because once the employee knows what he needs to do to drive performance and is able to perform fantastically well on his job, it will reflect not only on his job and his appraisal, but also on the department. And who will shine when the department is shining? The line manager, of course. And if the department is doing well, all things being equal, it will have an impact on the organization. So yes, you're correct. Everybody benefits when the employee is giving feedback. So when the employee is not giving feedback, a lot of people stand to lose a lot. So there's benefits in feedback. Now, how do we define feedback? We can say it is any information exchanged by the line manager with the employees or with their direct reports regarding their performance or their skills or their attitude, etc. And it's actually a two-way communication process. So it's a process whereby...
Okay. Host, please.
Hello.
Apologies, madam. Please continue.
Not a problem. Thank you. So it's actually a process whereby the line manager is talking, asking questions, and the employee is answering those questions, and the line manager is listening. So it's actually a two-way communication process. It's just not an avenue for the line manager to rave and rant, and then we all go away. No. Effective feedback has to be a two-way process. And the aim of that is to encourage self-awareness in the employee or direct reports, and ultimately an improvement in performance. So your feedback must result in an improvement in performance. If the feedback is given and the employee goes away from that meeting without knowing what to do to improve performance going forward, then that feedback has just been a rave and a rant, and he has not achieved anything. So the golden rule of feedback is that it must be future focused. It must lead to an improvement in performance. So that conversation is such that the employee sees what he or she has done, understands the impact of it, and is able to improve on their performance. So like I said, it's a process whereby the line manager asks questions about performance and listens to understand. So line managers, you need to learn how to listen, not only listen, but actively listen. Because only when you understand what is behind performance that you can now prefer the right solution to poor performance. So listening is actually important. Now, I want to share with you the what and the how of giving feedback. The what basically is, what do you say when you're giving feedback? And you will follow this, it follows this model, the AID model, where A is for action, I, impact, and D, desired outcome. What do you mean by action? Basically what you did or what you said. So what was the performance issue? What did the person do? What did the person say that caused that performance issue? What was the impact of that performance issue on you, the line manager, on other people around you, maybe other departments, or even our own department itself? What was the impact of what you did on us? And going forward, going by the golden rule of feedback, going forward, what do you need to do to perform better? So for example, imagine that a line manager and direct report go for a meeting with the MD. And after the meeting, the line manager calls the direct report to say, you know what? That meeting, you were mumbling, you were fumbling, and I'm quite surprised because I know you had your presentation ready even before, in good time before the meeting held. And you know, your mumbling and fumbling give the MD an impression that we're not serious in our department, we're not proactive, and we're not even ready to take the business to the next level. So what happened there? And the person might say, oh, you know what? I was actually very, very nervous. It's the first time I presented to the MD and I was nervous and I just lost everything that I had prepared and I'm so sorry, or this or that. And the line manager goes, well, understandable that you were nervous and all that. It happens to the best of us. However, going forward, what you need to do to perform better is to ensure you have a dry run with either me or one of your colleagues so that you overcome your fears, so that when you're really in front of the MD, you're able to get yourself together, be calm and collected, and deliver well. Understood? Understood. So your actions should talk about the issue, not the person. What did the person do? And what should the person be doing going forward to be better at that particular goal that you're giving them? So that is a what of feedback. Then there's a how of feedback. How do you give feedback? And with that, we'll go with the boost model, where B is for balanced, the first O observed, the second O, the objective, the S specific, and the T timely and trusted. What do you mean by balanced? We're saying here that feedback over time should focus on both the good and the bad. Feedback is not always negative. There's positive feedback too, and people love to receive positive feedback. I know I do. When people tell me I've done a good job, I can see that they appreciate me and they value me. I feel good about myself. So that when the person is now telling me I didn't do a good job, it's easier for me to take their feedback on board because I know they've got my back. So also with our employees, people or direct reports, people that work with us, when they believe that their line manager has their back, and they believe that line manager will tell them the truth all the time and tell them as it is. When it is good, they'll say it is good and congratulate and celebrate them. Therefore, when it is bad, why won't we now take it on board and self-reflect? It's easier to take feedback on board and self-reflect when it is balanced. Also, feedback should be based on what has been observed or what you have verified very well to be the issue. So you don't want to give feedback based on hearsay. I hear you said, she said, we said. No, that won't work because the person will go back and come back to you and say, no, I didn't say so. She said so. And when she said, by the time, before you know it, everybody's arguing about who said what. So ensure your feedback is based on what is factual, what is verified, what cannot be disputed. And then let your feedback be objective. So focus on the issue at hand. Refer to what the person did or said, not the person. So it's not about, gosh, how could you be so stupid? Or I thought you said you're a graduate. Come on. By the time you are diminishing the person or insulting the person, all the person can hear is the insult of the bad words you've said. The person will not now hear the going forward, this is what you should be doing, because the person just be hurt and be reflecting on the bad things you've said, and that will not allow the person to receive the feedback in a good way or act on it. So desist, please, from referring to people or the person, but focus only on the behavior of that person did. What was the issue? Then be specific. Like I said earlier on, be factual and provide specific examples because after all, it's something you've observed. Then please ensure your feedback is timely and trusted. And with that, I think I want to share a story regarding timely. So I actually sat in on a feedback conversation between a line manager and direct reports some time ago. And it wasn't a very good feedback. In fact, it was actually negative. The rating was quite bad. The line manager rated the employee very, very badly. And the employee and the line manager, when they sat down together, the first thing the employee said was, why? I have worked so hard during the year. I did this, I did that, and I did this. And line manager says, yes, you worked so hard on the wrong things. We have a focus for this department. We have a project. You focused all your time on troubleshooting and, normal daily routine things. The project we have at hand, you hardly spend time on it. And now look at us. Time has gone. And the employee says, but I was so busy. I was working so hard. Sometimes I'll sleep in the office. Well, whatever. You have your JD. I also know what the what's it called, the focus for the year was. Why didn't you focus on that as well? So there was a big back and forth between line manager and the employee. At the end of the day, the employee said, if you knew all this from the get-go, why didn't you tell me? Why wait till now to give me these negative reports? Why didn't you tell me during the year so that I could at least change my ways? And so it was a very bitter lesson for both line manager and the employee. You can imagine. For the line manager, what struck home was that, yes, feedback is important for it to be timely. And what the employee went back home with is that, you know what, even if feedback is not coming, I should seek it, because I don't want to wait till the end of the year and get surprised. I should seek it. So feedback is actually a two-way thing. If it's not coming, you seek it. So if the line manager refuses to give feedback or forgets, or for some reason it's not coming, the employee has a right to go and ask, regarding this presentation, how did I do? And you don't have to wait for the formal appraisal process, be it half yearly or yearly or whatever. You can come at the end of the month or during the week and ask the line manager, how well am I doing? And get feedback, knowing that whatever the feedback is just going to help you perform better on your job. And then feedback should be trusted. And this talks about the relationship between line manager and the employee. The better the relationship, the higher the likelihood that the employee will trust the feedback. The person will not think that this person is witch hunting me, or he has come again. He never says anything good, anything I do, because that person doesn't trust you. But the person trusts what you have to say, respects your opinion, you're always open and honest with the person, then the likelihood is there that this person will trust your feedback when it comes, be it good, be it bad. Okay, I hope you're all still hearing me. Can I continue?
Yes, ma'am, we're with you. Please go ahead.
Yes, you can.
Please. Thank you. So that is feedback. But one thing you might have noticed as HR people, and if there are line managers here who are not in HR, they might also relate to it, is that sometimes some managers are reluctant to give feedback, be it positive, be it negative. For the positive feedback, they might feel it's unnecessary. Let's rock the boat. Things are going well. And really, I don't have time. There's no point in just wasting time. The person has the JD and the person is following the JD. Yeah, things are going well now, so let's just continue. Let's move on. Or I hardly ever give this person good feedback. If I start now, the person might think that I'm insincere. Or if I give this person this feedback and it's positive, and if I continue to give positive feedback, this person will expect more money. And please, this is a very tight time for businesses generally, especially from our businesses. We don't need all that. The head will swell, and before you know it, they will start demanding what we don't when we're ready to give them. That's positive feedback. And sometimes some managers are reluctant to give negative feedback as well, with excuses such as, I really don't want to deal with this problem. This thing is a frog I don't want to eat right now. It feels really uncomfortable giving bad news. The employee might feel demotivated. I'll just be seeing the person's face fall. And then it might destroy our relationship. Right now, we are on a very good note. If I give this person this negative feedback, I'll now be the bad guy. And that's where some people now say, HR said. Do we have that experience when they say HR said, when it's bad news, HR said? Does anybody have that experience on board? Hello? Hello? Okay. Frederick says
Hello,
yes.
Sunday
says
yes.
We're listening. Okay, yes. So I was just saying that some line managers, because they don't want to look bad, they now push the buck and say it is HR that said we should give you this negative feedback, because they want to destroy their relationship. But guess what? Like a boss of mine said, leadership is not a popularity contest. It's not about how popular you are or you want to be with your direct reports. It's about being a servant to the bigger picture. What is the bigger picture? Are you a servant to it, a true servant to it? Are you ensuring that your people are getting the feedback they need to perform optimally on their job? Or are you trying to manage the relationship and just get by and probably stress and stretch other people in the team so that you don't destroy your relationship with that person? So leadership is not a popularity contest. Let's give the feedback, be it positive, be it negative. So I'd like to ask you, Are there any more reasons why managers are reluctant to give negative feedback, apart from the ones we've just shared? If so, please share in the chat box. Sammy says, then it becomes they say. Exactly. They say. You're correct. So are there any more reasons why managers are reluctant to give negative feedback, apart from the ones we've shared so far? Anybody? Are we typing? Okay, I want to believe that we are typing. Aha, Catherine says, when they want the employee to be sacked. So they're reluctant to give feedback when they want the employee sacked. Wow. Catherine, can you talk more about that? Is it allowed? I hope she's allowed to unmute and talk. I'd like to hear more about that. Yes. What do you mean by when they want the employee to be sacked?
Good evening, everyone. I've seen a scenario where the supervisor actually want the employee to be sacked. So he refused to give feedback. Let's just wait till end of the year and I'll write my appraisal and I'll amend. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Thank you. Basically setting the person up, just watching the person misbehave and saying, leave him, leave him. Appraisal time is coming. Okay. Thank you. Any more? Any more reasons why managers might be reluctant to give feedback? Balogun says they don't the techniques and strategy to offer feedback. I guess that they don't have the techniques and strategy to offer feedback. HR has not created a process and system for them to offer feedback. A process and a system to offer feedback. Okay, I'm a bit uncertain what that means in terms of process and system, because feedback doesn't have to only be at the formal appraisal period. You can give feedback on the go. Like we said, feedback is an ongoing process. It doesn't have to be at a certain time or a certain place. You can call the person up and say, you know what, this is what I've observed, and this is what we need to do to get back on track. So it doesn't have to be only quarterly or only at management meetings or only at appraisal time. It is very fluid. It's very, very fluid. Okay. Sammy says, when manager into open to communication. Frederick says, after several negative feedback and there is no change. Wow. And there's no change. So we've been giving negative feedback and there's no change. So I think that's where consequence management comes up. Again, I'd like to talk about your performance management policy. So when you give feedback, you give feedback, you appraise, and it's consistently negative. What is the consequence? Does any consequence exist in the organization for that? Okay. Any more? Yes. Lamik Kanra Bukola says they're reluctant to give negative feedback if the person involved is a close person. So they don't want to destroy the relationship. And Sammy says when the manager cannot manage the emotions that come with receiving feedback, especially negative feedback. Wow, that's a powerful one. The manager can't manage the emotions that come up with it. So maybe there's something about training and supporting and helping and coaching that manager to be able to give feedback, especially negative feedback. Okay. Hello. Okay. So there's so many other reasons why feedback is not given due to reluctance. But this presents an opportunity for us as HR people, an opportunity to train them, an opportunity to support them, an opportunity to coach them. And it also gives us an opportunity to review our performance management policy so that if there are no consequences in there for poor performance or for feedback not being given, then it should be not only documented but also activated. Great. Now, what are the benefits to the employee of receiving feedback? Well, when somebody receives feedback, the person is able to build self-awareness. The person understands what their strengths are, understands what their weaknesses or gaps are, and they're able to now close the gap because they know I am not good in this. Therefore, I need to develop myself so that I can be good in it. So I need to go on that training, Coursera, Udemy, go and review some YouTube, some seminars on YouTube, whatever. I need to train myself so that I can close those gaps. So when the person closes those gaps, that person develops competence. And when that person develops competence, the person is more confident on the job. And when you have a person with competence and confidence on the job, it cannot but improve their performance. So there's a benefit to giving feedback because not only will the person improve their performance, but this improved performance will reflect on the department, on the line manager, and on the organization. But when there's negative, when there's no feedback given, there's a cost. There's a cost to the employee of not receiving feedback. And the cost is that the person has inaccurate perception of their performance. The performance, they're not aware that they're not performing well. They think they're doing a good job and everybody's wondering, gosh, when will this person just get it? So they think they're a superstar and everybody else thinks otherwise. So they have an inaccurate perception of themselves and their performance. And because they don't know how badly they are performing, and nobody has told them, they also have an inaccurate perception of how they are regarded by others. He believes he's a superstar. He believes everybody sees him as a superstar, not knowing that the opposite is actually the case. And this person is, as a result, deprived of a chance to improve on their performance. Why? Because he's not going on training because he doesn't see a gap. He's not seeking feedback or coaching or a mentor because he doesn't believe he has a gap. So he has been deprived of a chance to improve on his own performance. And so this person is less likely to have opportunities for development. Training doesn't go. Growth opportunities do not come his way because people are like, that guy. And therefore, the incidence of poor performance worsens. And when he's doing a bad job on his table, he will pull his team down. He will pull his colleagues down, and that will reflect not only on the department, if care is not taken, might reflect on the organization as well, depending on the impact of that person's job. And so we can see that giving feedback is actually important. Like we said earlier on, when feedback is given, it's a win-win for the organization, the employee, the line manager, for the team, everybody. And so when feedback is not given, it's a lose-lose. Everybody loses. So I believe the best bet is to actually give them feedback. I hope you agree with me. And so we round up by saying that performance monitoring is a critical aspect of performance management because it gives the basis for effective performance assessment and evaluation. Because if you don't monitor, what are you evaluating? What are you rating? So as a line manager, it's good to invest in the time required to observe and understand what is affecting performance. And to please ensure your feedback is given, the feedback you give is specific and non-judgmental by using the aid and the boost method. So address the issue and not the person. And lastly, but not the least, support the employee to identify the best intervention that addresses performance issues and ensure that they are committed to by the employee. Thank you very much. And with that, I will take your questions. Thank you for listening. Hello.
Okay, apologies for that silence. I guess thank you so much for that wonderful, succinct presentation. Yeah, guys, please let's applaud our guest speaker. Let's applaud our guest speaker. That's a very wonderful presentation. And please start sending in your question. Alimat, I guess, okay. Do you have any questions at the back end while we wait for participants' questions?
You have a raised hand.
Okay. Okay. Demola Obason. All right. Can we please put the question in the chat box? That way we can better coordinate and save time. It's almost closing time. In fact, it's closing time for some of us that are not working from home. So first of all, I want to ask, how does working from home, like, right, remote work, how does it affect performance? Now, this is a trend. These are the things. These are current trends in the in the workplace right now, right? And one of the challenges or one of the concerns of employers regarding remote work is actually performance and all of that, right? So how do you think, I mean, for the employers of laborers who are on the call, the line managers who are on the call, who are considering this, or who have, reasons for not adopting this mode of work in this time and age, what's your advice? How can performance be measured in remote work era?
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Am I muted? Okay. Yeah, thanks for that. So in this remote work era, you're correct. How is performance measured? When before COVID, we were all at work, all at our desks. And if you have an open office, your line manager is there watching you, observing you, so people know who has come to work, who is working, well, supposedly working because they have a laptop in front of them, and we all know the closing time and the opening time. But COVID has taught us that it's possible to perform very well at home, away from work. But how do we measure this performance? By ensuring that whatever goals we give, the results are outcome focused. The goals and the results are outcome focused. So it's not about what time you resume or what time you close, but have you delivered? So it's important to ensure that you have defined and well articulated the deliverables, such that when you see the deliverables, then you know that this person has performed. So some companies have a system whereby they know who's online when, they know when you have logged in, when you have logged out. But then somebody can just log in, go away, and do other things. The important thing for you as an employer or line manager is deliverables, the outcomes, because that's what makes the difference. So you want to ensure you give SMART goals, specific and measurable, especially measurable, such that when the person has delivered on what you want them to do, and you can measure it and it is up to par, then you can say, yes, this person has performed very well. So you're less bothered about, okay, when did he log in? When did he log out? How many hours he used on the laptop? What you're bothered about is my deliverables, the outcomes. Where are they? I want this way at 5 p.m. If I don't get it this way at 5 p.m. the way I want it, then there's a problem. But if I get it the way I want at 4 p.m., fantastic. Then whatever it is you do with your time between 4, 5, and the rest of the day is your business. I mean, I'm happy. You've given me my deliverable. So that's how I'll answer that question. I hope that satisfies.
Yes, I want to believe that that satisfies, that answers the question for those in need of that aims. It's about impact, it's about deliverables, it's about tasks, about measuring the right thing over physical presence of these individuals, right? Thanks so much. So who is reading the questions, guys, please? Alima?
Okay, sir.
Okay.
We have question. It says, where you are in an organization where performance review is not institutionalized and appraisals are subjective, and the tone from the top supports the subjective nature of appraiser. How do you handle this?
Okay, the dilemma of HR. So I'm assuming the person speaking from an HR point of view, and the tone from the top is not supporting objectivity in appraisals. What do you do? I think you have to be true to yourself and your profession and make a case for the objectivity. So why is it being subjective? Is it because there's vested interest, or because people just do not know how to make it objective? So we need to answer that question first. Is it a knowledge thing, or because we have some favorites and we want those favorites to continue to be buttered? If it's a knowledge thing, then it's up to the HR to actually create that awareness, the sensitization, and put in the structures and systems. However, if the line manager or the business owner is the one that says, these are my soft spots, these are my favorites, and I don't care what happens to everybody else, unfortunately, you cannot. The most you can do for a business owner is advise him. You cannot tell him what to do in his business. So there's something in the HR creed that's from the CIPM that says that resignation is an option. So you might have to be faced with either stay there and try and change, and if not changing, leave. So that's what I have to say about that.
Okay, ma'am. We have another question here that says, what happens when you train a particular employee who is performing below average and such person is not producing results? How are you going to treat this?
Okay, and that's where the performance manager policy that I was talking about earlier on comes in. So what does your company have in place for consistent poor performance? Consistent poor performance, it needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed. Otherwise, people will be coasting along, not performing well, and still collecting their salaries and stressing other people who are doing a good job because they have to pick up their slack. So that's why I mentioned the PIP earlier on. So when you have given consistent reviews, negative reviews, and the person is not improving their performance, you can put the person on a PIP. And depending on what the person is supposed to achieve, it could be a 3-month PIP, it could be a 6-month PIP, depending. And the goal is this: I want you to improve your performance within this period. And during that period, I have set goals for you to do. You need to accomplish these 1, 2, 3 SMART goals within this 3-month period. If you do not perform on these goals, then the consequences for poor performance will be evoked. In some companies, the consequence is we say bye-bye to each other. So you need to come up with a policy that suits your business circumstances and that but addresses the consequences for poor performance. At what point in time do you give the person a PIP? At what point in time do you just have to shake hands and say bye-bye? But then this is assuming that you have done all the necessary checks. So you have found out the reason for poor performance. You have supported the person to overcome poor performance, but the person just is not budging and things are not going well. So there's a duty to help the person overcome that poor performance. There's a duty on the line manager's part to coach and support that person. It's all when all is said and done and it's not working, and it seems you're knocking your head against a brick wall, that you might have to actually shake hands and say bye-bye.
Okay, ma'am. I think that answered the question for the person that asked. Okay, another question here says, how do you go about performance feedback from an executive that does not address the area of improvement?
Okay, that the person does not just raise and rants and does not focus on going forward, what do we do to get better?
Yeah.
I'm assuming that was what the person is asking. So is it possible to go to the executive with wisdom with diplomacy, with tact, and let the person be aware of the golden rule of feedback, which is that it should be future focused? Is it possible to let the person know that, the D part of the aid is actually the most important part of feedback? What to do going forward? So as the HR person, I like to believe that you are approachable. However, you also need to know how to approach other people, especially executives. They need to know. It's not that they don't need to know. And not all of them know, actually. It's likely they've been promoted based on the fact that they have technical skills and they're very good at what they do. But the people management skills might not be so great. So it's your role actually as HR to support, to coach, to create the awareness and hold their hands during this process. So for example, when they're having their performance feedback conversation, you could decide that you could ask them, can I sit in and watch the process and watch how it goes? And when it's time to let the person know what to do going forward, you could just nudge the executive, and say, okay, so going forward, what should he do? And that will help the executive understand that, I also need to include this as part of my feedback process. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. Another one here says,
let me add a little insight to that. I wanted to actually say this before, after your contribution to the first question, which is, at what point do you let an employee whom you have trained and the person is not improving? Yeah. Another thing I want to add to what you say on that is, have we set a clear performance expectation? Because a lot of time we create very vague KPIs that are not measurable. And that is one of the areas of improvement for us as HR professionals. There is this thing about copying KPI, and just to have something to measure. Is our KPI measuring the right input? Because we can have, it's confusing when you give somebody a job description and KPI that does not speak exactly to the inputs that you want from them, that you are measuring, that you consider as performance. So to these individuals, they are working, but there is no clear cut as per what it is that you want. Yeah, so you just keep ranting, you keep sending them on training them. So if you have even trained them, that's even good. A lot of people don't even train. So when there is a persistent poor performance, it's very painful, honestly, speaking from employer point of view and speaking from line manager point of view, because you are the one that will always go and, receive some bombshell and, insult at the management level and all of that. But have we really asked ourselves the question about these people understanding what they are doing? Do they really understand what I want them to do? And again, what are those things that you need that is affecting their performance, their ability to actually deliver at the level that you want them to deliver? There again, you mentioned something about people management, which is very key. When you are promoted as a manager, you are probably promoted to a particular role because you have been very good at the previous role that you were handling before you get promoted. At the moment you get promoted to that particular role, you want or you expect your subordinate to perform at your level, not minding the fact that it took you a lot of work, a lot of probably support from your previous subordinates, previous line managers and superiors before you could get to that level of performance. So we need to focus on building our people beyond the work. What are those things that are affecting them? How do they reason? I believe with that. So we should not, what I'm trying to say is that we should not always let it be about let them go. And we must kill bias. We must kill bias for whatever reason. A lot of time, people who are being marked as poor performers are actually not truly poor performers. These are people, individuals who are willing to work. Probably there are gaps, no doubt. That could be knowledge gap, that could be skill gap, that could be behavioral gaps, and there could be communication gap. So bias must be killed to zero for whatever reasons. I know these things exist a lot of time, and all the line managers on the call, please, if you have anybody on your team that you don't just like for whatever reason, please, that should not be found in a working environment, in a corporate environment. That should not be a reason. Everybody that come your way, that God has put under you, under your leadership, are there for you to mentor, coach, tutor, train, and you can't do this without patience, without understanding, without some level of emotional intelligence and love, right? For just to show that you want to ensure that these individuals that have come under your purview, right, get better at what they do. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. And that underscores the importance of the performance conversation, where as a line manager, you actively ask and you actively listen. And you're asking why. It's only when you understand why they can now understand what to do. And like he rightly said, sometimes it could be that the person was not clear. The person had no clarity on what they're supposed to do or how to do it or what tools to use. So the more frequent your performance conversations are, the more effective they are because they can address all these issues on time. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ibrahim Aliyu is asking, what form of performance management system will you recommend for a product retailing company like pharmacy or supermarket?
I mean, there are many performance management systems out there. Are you talking about IT tool, for example? Is that what you mean? The IT tool itself? Yeah. Is the IT tool he's talking about, right? The manages performance. So there are many of them out there, and it will not, I don't think I should be advocating for any of them on the platform right now. I'm not biased to any one of them, but I know, Seamless HR has, I know SystemSpecs has. So, there are many of them out there right now. But what you want to look out is for things like flexibility. You want to look out for the fact that the system can produce reports on time. You want to look for things like ability to review and edit information because goals are not static. So there are some features you look for in performance management system. You want to make sure that these features exist in the ones that you want to install in your environment.
Yes, thank you. For those who need a recommendation for one reason or the other, please you can chat us up in the platform after the session so that we can give you accurate recommendations without sounding biased, like you said. Thank you so much. Okay, Alima, any other questions?
Okay. Yes, we have another question here that says, do we focus only on the aspects that needs improvement when treating poor performance?
I think when treating any form of performance, you focus on both the good and the bad. The person can't be all that bad, and like I said earlier on, people love to feel appreciated and valued. So, and most appraisal forms will actually have a column for strengths and weaknesses. So by the time you're filling out the strengths, you're celebrating the person to say, I know you're good in this, well done, good job. So you celebrate both the good and then you celebrate the good and then you call out the bad. But focusing on only one aspect will not give you a balanced feedback. Your balanced feedback should focus on both the good and the bad over time. So for anybody, even if the person is a superstar, the person will have a weakness at some point in time, which you need to call out so that the person, can overcome that weakness. And for a person who's not performing very well, you need to also call out their strengths because the person is not all that bad. So value your people, appreciate your people.
Okay, ma'am. we have another one here that says, when your communicated feedback does not seem to be utilized in any meaningful way to improve performance, especially if you are working for or with a one-man business, how do you proceed?
I think we've said something, dealt a bit on that, especially with regards to the second to the last question, I think. So your Temitope also said a lot about the fact that it could be a two-way thing, not just the fact that the person is not performing, but clarity of goals might not be there. So line managers should also ask themselves and self-reflect, have I set this person up for success? So it's a two-way thing, really. It's only after the two-way thing has been, it's only after the self-reflection has been done and you've done your best. So the biases are not there, you've supported, you've coached. You know, sometimes person's strength could be another department, not yours. You know, so all those initiatives and have been taken and the person still is not performing, that's when you need to now kick in the consequences of poor performance.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. The last question for today. Okay, what do you do when you find yourself in a situation whereby you are not given the opportunity to speak or defend a situation?
That is as an employee, right? As an employee, you're not given the opportunity to defend yourself. So there's just the manager has just come and talk, and you have not been able to say, oh, this is why I did what I did. That's a very unfortunate circumstance. And I'm hoping that the person's office has an HR department where the person can actually go to and cry to HR to say, this is the issue, you know, and I wish my line manager would listen to me more and help me out more. This is where HR can actually be the intermediary between the line manager and the HR person, you know, to ensure that this happens. So call the line manager to their office, or, you know, have a meeting with the line manager to say, this is what your people are saying. You don't have to mention names, because if you mention names, that person might now be a target. So this is what your people are saying, and they want you to be more of this and less of that, you know. So that might be a way out, because you want the line manager to change. Otherwise, the team will not be able to improve and perform better. So it starts with the line manager and getting that person to change, influencing the line manager. So your ability to, the HR's ability to influence line manager is actually very, very important here. So I'll call on HR to step up their game here.
Yeah, what I think about this question is in two ways, right? I think this question can be linked to communication or feedback error, right? There shouldn't be, for both parties, either the employer or the subordinate or the superior. I don't think there should be room for to be defensive, right? When you get to a point where you're not beginning to defend, then that has betrayed the purpose of giving effective feedback. Yeah, so during the period of giving feedback, I believe there should be communication. There should be room for everybody to speak, right? To say, okay, this is what we have observed, and why do you think? It's very important that we give employees the opportunity to actually explain. First of all, you discuss the issue, then ask the employee why you think why they think they're having that issue, or why are they performing at that level, or what is really contributing, what is happening. Care to know. And if the employee has been given such opportunity to explain themselves, and then the next thing should be to discuss a way forward, right, and agree, and then that forms the performance improvement plan for both of them. So, because I don't want people to go with the impression that, once your line manager tells you this, you should always, defend. If the manager is speaking to you in a way that you can't even, there is no conversation. So it's just about reeling out blames and yelling about poor performance, then that is not feedback. Nothing has taken place. But going by this context of giving feedback, right, I don't think there should be room for anybody to defend. I don't understand. Sorry. I think you understand what I'm saying, right?
Okay, from my understanding of the question, the person didn't even have a chance to give their own side of the story. So from my understanding, the line manager was raving and ranting and did not give the person an opportunity to say, okay, why I did what I did. That's what I understand from the question. Am I correct? So it's more about explaining as opposed to defending.
The owner of that question, if you're on the platform, please maybe you could just reach out after the session, because it's important that we guide you properly.
Yeah. So when you cannot hear the employee's side of the story, and you just raved and ranted, then like you said, it's not feedback. And that's where the line manager needs coaching and support by HR on how to give effective feedback.
Exactly. Yeah. And when somebody say defend, it looks like maybe, oh, that person has committed an error, and there is no opportunity for that person to actually explain why such error has been committed. Things happen in the workplace every day, right? So, but I think there should be mutual relationship between the employer and employee-employer relation, or manager and employee relation, whereby you can actually, point out what is not working as expected and hear why that thing is not, the way, or is not done the way you wanted it to be done. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, this last question is saying, thank you, Ibrahim Ali. Appraisal process is more of discussion between manager and the alliance. Yes, correct. And Beatrice is saying, is it right to conduct performance appraisal without the employee being aware?
That's interesting. Performance appraisal without the employee being aware of the rating, or being aware that an appraisal was conducted on him or her. I think it's it's like we said earlier on, the cost of not, as far as that is concerned, the person hasn't been giving feedback. So what's the cost of not giving feedback? If the person has not done a good job and the person has been appraised and it was negative and you didn't tell the person, then nothing has been achieved. All you have done is a disservice to the person and to yourself as a line manager.
Okay, so I think this is actually talking about the method of appraisal. There's this method of appraisal where one can just be appraised without you being there. Of course, you must have been aware of the fact, or probably the metrics by which your performance metrics, right? Your performance expectation metrics and all of that. That is why we say in performance management training that the best method to employ is that the performance appraiser should start with the employee themselves, let them appraise themselves, and then the line manager, whoever is appraising them, should now have a performance appraiser meeting with with each lines, and then agree on scores. So I score myself to 50, but you feel I've performed much more than that, and you are giving me 80. I score myself 100, you think I've not really performed as better or as much as I thought, right? You score me 30, and that could be conversation. So I think for everyone on the call, let's try and adopt such performance. It just gives the employee this sense of belonging, that they have a say, right, in the performance appraisal.